right, guys, welcome to another 12 weeks of home ownership. As you already know, I am super excited to have you all here. I am more excited to have Aimee back again for the third time.
I feel so special.
So today, I know this is geared towards first-time home buyers, and we want to give you the information for purchasing your first home. But we also know that your first home is usually a stepping stone to building wealth and to further and more purchases in the future. So Aimee here, we're going to talk about that, and we're also going to talk about different types of qualifications, a little bit beyond lending 101, some things that may be non-conforming, right? For some people that may be able to qualify for these other types of programs. So let's jump right into it. You guys already know Aimee, the mortgage girl boss. So we're hometown lenders, and I will say that every lender has different types of programs, but I love the fact that hometown lenders have these different types of programs for different buyers.
Yes, we try to meet people where they're at and fit whatever their financial situation looks like.
Yeah, so one big thing is 1099. So we ran away, or people I would say ran away from 1099 workers because their money is not considered, I guess, what's the word? Stable, or just not knowing how much it's going to be, or it's not going to be the same amount. And so I feel like it was very hard to get a loan before if you were a 1099, if you were a contractor, and then you're making all these deductions, and then your adjusted gross income is low so that you can be in a lower tax bracket and all these things. So how does the program work with hometown lenders for 1099?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and a lot of people, they get excited when they have that 1099 job opportunity because you're not getting taxes taken out of your income.
Cash.
So it seems like a sweet deal, right? But when you're going to purchase a home, typically for these conforming loan products, we need to see a 2-year history of you having 1099. So what that means is we need to look backwards at your tax returns, look back for 2 years to kind of get a gauge of what your net income is, because when you're self-employed, we're looking at your net income, whereas if someone is on a salary or W-2, we're looking at their gross income. So it's two different things. But that's for the conforming loans. So that's your Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. There's loans that are considered non-conforming, and these are the loans that kind of try to meet you where you're at. So for 1099 employees, we can actually just take your 1099, look to see what you've made, and qualify you based off of that 1099. Now, this loan program is really for people that fit in the box of qualifying because you do have to have money. So these are for the people that are able to put 10 to 20% down, that are really like, hey, I don't want you to look at my tax returns. There's a lot going on right there. So yeah, if you're in that situation, we can definitely help you and meet you where you're at, but it is gonna take some drawbacks as well, because you're going to have a higher interest rate, you're going to have to put more money down, and the loan terms are just going to be different than what they would have been with a conforming loan.
And also for there's another program, the bank statement loan, that may work for 1099 workers as well, because you're just looking at bank statements.
Yeah, so we can look back at either your past 12 months of bank statements up to 24 months of bank statements. And basically what we're doing with that loan program is seeing your deposits. What are you actively depositing in your bank accounts? And we're basing your income off of that instead of looking at your tax returns. So these are creative ways for us to kind of get around having to use tax returns, because I know a lot of self-employed people, you guys write off a lot of stuff. And I know it's to like not owe the IRS as much, but y'all write off a lot. And sometimes that's not good for the home buying process.
Yes. And so what I will say is that and tell me if this is like the right conversation. So when because sometimes I tell people, come to me before you think you're ready, right?
Yes.
That's the big thing.
Yeah.
So sometimes they'll say, I want to buy in 2 years, but I'm a 1099 worker. And my conversation used to be, well, you used to write off all this stuff, but now you can't write off. You have to choose. You have to choose if you want to pay less in taxes and write off a lot and have your adjusted gross income be a smaller amount so that you're in a smaller tax bracket, or you have to not write off as much so that your adjusted gross income can be higher, but you're gonna have to pay taxes on that higher adjusted gross income.
Yeah.
So is that kind of the same conversation? Like you can't make $100,000, write $70,000 off in deductions, have an adjusted gross income of $30,000 and say I want to buy the $700,000 house.
Yeah, it has to make sense from an underwriting perspective. And I get it, it's tricky. You don't want to have to owe the IRS all of this money, but you have to think about it in a different perspective and also budget at the beginning of the year what you're expected to make and what your expenses are going to be. And I'm not saying don't write off any of your expenses, write off your true expenses. Don't write off things that aren't real expenses, because you do want to be able to show the underwriter on paper that you're making money.
Right.
And we do have these non-conforming products that can help you, but I think that at the end of the day, the conforming loans are pretty much a safer bet, and they're going to cost you less over the long run. So it might seem like, oh, I'm not having to pay all the IRS all this money right now, but over the long run, if you're looking to do home ownership, it makes sense to just be truthful and honest.
Yeah. And for my first home purchase, I did go with a conforming loan, but with my most recent home purchase, I did do a bank statement loan because, you know, if there's a way to not have to show taxes, then I don't want to show my taxes. And we did a bank statement loan that did prompt 10% down, so you have to have more skin in the game with those.
Of course.
You do have to have a higher credit score. The underwriting process, I feel like it was kind of simple, but at the same time, we had higher broker fees that were attached to it. But we also don't have private mortgage insurance because we ended up going with that program. So you may hear a bank statement loan called a portfolio loan, or they call it like an entrepreneur loan, or no tax loan because you don't have to show your taxes and things like that. But all these things are different ways. But again, talking to the lender to see which way may benefit you more, because, you know, I could have went to the lender and said, well, here are my taxes, show me what it would be conforming, and then without my taxes, show me what it is.
Just to have your options. Yeah. It's always good to have options.
Yeah. And so there's a program that I just heard that Hometown Lenders does. I don't even know how long you guys have been doing it, but it made me super excited for my buyers, specifically in Washington, D.C. And it is the accessory dwelling unit program.
Yes.
So if you do not know, an accessory dwelling unit is another unit that is on your property that you plan to rent out to someone else to have income from that home, from that piece of property that's on your property. It can be a container home, it can be your basement, as long as it's a separate entrance.
Separate entrance and kitchenette.
And it has a kitchenette. And so this is exciting because sometimes those accessory dwelling units aren't separately metered to be a separate unit for it to be considered a multi-unit property. However, you can make money from it, and they can count the income to make you qualify, and you don't even have to rent it out if you don't want to. So can you talk about that?
Of course, yeah. So this is actually, I would love to claim it as a hometown thing, but Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, they passed the guidelines that are now allow for accessory dwelling unit income. And the key thing that Tamara just said, you guys, is that accessory dwelling units aren't true units. So it's not like, oh, this is a 2-unit home. It's the fact that this is a 1-unit home, but listen, look, our basement is a living space and it has a separate entrance and it has a kitchenette. I'm going to put tenants down here, so this is going to be future income. Well, we can use that future income to help you qualify for a home loan. We can actually use 75% of that future rental income, which can significantly help you guys qualify for more of a house. But the one thing here is that it is good in markets like DC because the one thing that we have to have is a comparable to support the value, and that is done by the appraisal. So the appraiser has to be able to determine a comparable in the area that's similar, and that's why DC is a perfect market to do that type of project in, because there's many homes like that.
There's a lot of English basements. There's like, everything has a separate interest. And even in Prince George's County, a lot of these basements are the size of people's apartments in Prince George's County. And if you throw a kitchenette down there and you have a separate interest, it can be a walk up or walk out. And it's a separate entrance. You can count that income to help you qualify for a larger home.
And another thing too that's cool is, like, say you find a home that's perfect and maybe it doesn't have that kitchenette in the basement yet, but it does have that separate entrance. We can do a renovation loan to turn the basement into that accessory dwelling unit and use the future rental income to help you qualify. So there's definitely creative tools that we can use to help you be able to kind of qualify for that higher price point with that extra income.
Yeah, see, so you can get, like, if the kitchen upstairs has purple cabinets and you want white cabinets, you can just put your white cabinets in the basement.
Put the purple ones in the basement.
Put the purple ones in the basement and put the white ones upstairs.
Exactly.
And then boom, that way you still have your accessory dwelling unit and your renovation loan to be able to get the cabinets that you want and still qualify for the house that you want. So that is awesome. So talking about renovation loans, so a lot of people, I'm talking about at least half of even my first time home buyers, they're like, HGTV has messed with all of us, right?
And now Netflix, like the amount of shows on Netflix about real estate, I'm obsessed with every single one of them. I love them.
It's insane. So everyone wants to be a DIY or renovator or do something to their home to make it what they want it to be. As a first-time home buyer, can I get a renovation loan, or is it harder? Because we see a lot of things on Netflix and HGTV, and 80% of y'all will say, I want to do renovations. So is a renovation loan harder? Is there like a minimum or maximum, or how does that process work?
That's a great question. So I feel like as a first-time home buyer, if you want to do a renovation loan, if that's what you want to pursue, number one, you have to have patience. You have to have patience because it's a longer process. You're not going to have that instant gratification of just stepping into the home and everything is done. You have to be able to visualize and picture what you want, right? And then two, you have to be able to find a contractor that you like and that you trust and that is reasonable with their fees. So I typically recommend that you shop for about 3 different contractors. I think it's wise to start that process like when you get the idea in your head that renovation is what you want to do, but also you have to keep in mind, depending on your market, you might not be able to do down payment assistance programs in pair with a renovation loan. So you might have to bring your full down payment and all closing costs to the closing table if you want to go that route.
Okay, so with the renovation loan, I have the contract. Is the contractor paid by the bank, or do I get cash at closing? And
that's a great question too.
If I have $40,000, I want $40,000 in renovations. So y'all giving me $40,000 cash at the closing table?
We are not that trustworthy, right? So how it works is we're gonna base our total loan amount off of what's called the acquisition price.
Okay.
So say you find a home at $275,000, right? And it needs $25,000 and work, and that's what the contractor says, hey, we need $25,000. We're gonna base our acquisition cost off of the sales price of $275,000 plus the contractor's bid of $25,000, plus we have to put a 10% up to a 15% contingency on top of whatever the contractor said their work would require. That's in case if, as things go along, something happens and they need more money.
Right.
So that contingency is there to protect them. So your down payment is based off of that total acquisition. And we don't start paying the contractor until that loan funds. So the contractor is going to get paid in draws. The money does not go to the consumer. It goes to the contractor. And they're going to get paid in portions. We can't give them all the money up front because what if they disappear?
Right.
What if they bounce? That happens. That's happened to people before. So that's why we make sure they complete one project, then they get paid. Then they complete another project, then they get paid until all the work is finished. And typically it takes about 6 months.
So it's a good question to ask the contractor, have you worked with renovation loans before? Because
You need to ask that.
not all contractors are okay with
Are willing to.
are willing to get paid in the draw of when things are completed because they
Exactly.
just aren't used to it or want to.
And I've heard from contractors that some contractors love working with renovation loans because it's guaranteed that they're going to get paid and when they're going to get paid. But some contractors are like, no, I don't want to mess with that. So that's why it's important when you start interviewing contractors to make sure that they're okay with it.
Okay, but just may need a not higher down payment, but just all your money because some program. Does Maryland mortgage program?
They don't allow it.
They don't allow it. Okay.
So yeah, certain programs like in Baltimore City will allow it. I don't know of any DC programs that allow renovation loans.
Yeah, I think one of them do. I just don't know which one it is. I don't know if it's HPAP or DC Open Doors, but one of them will allow, I think, HPAP up to $25,000.
I'll have to research that.
Well, we'll double check for you guys and answer that. But, well, what if I am purchasing another home that is I live in the DMV area. I want to purchase a vacation home in Florida and spend my winters in Florida, and I want to spend my summers in DC.
That's fine.
So,
We got you.
so how does the process work for that
second home?
For that second home or vacation home?
Yeah, so it's actually interesting. So you can have a primary residence that you live in, majority of the year, and then you can have a second home that's not considered an investment property. So a second home, you do have to live in it for a portion of the year, and it has to be outside of a certain mile radius of your primary residence. So like you buying something in Florida, that's completely fine. I think it's like a 100-mile radius that it has to be outside of. The qualification parameters are actually a little bit more lenient than doing it as an investment property because you only have to put 10% down. So it doesn't require you to put, 15 to 20% down as you would have if it was a straight up investment property.
Okay.
But you can't go tricking the bank. You can't say this is going to be a second home and then you use it as an investment property for the whole year. You do have to live in it for a portion of the year. You can't lie about it.
Portion is subjective.
It has to be within I think it's a couple months out of the year you have to live there.
Okay. So a couple months out of the year, I can go with not the full 20% that I would have to do if it was considered an investment property. Can I use 2 FHAs at one time?
You can't use an FHA loan to buy a second home, but you can use an FHA loan to buy another primary residence. So say you bought your first home with an FHA loan, right? And now you're ready to buy another home. There are some exceptions where you can get a second FHA loan. One is if your job is making you relocate outside of a 100-mile radius, then you can qualify for a second FHA loan. 2 is if your family size increases and the space that you have is no longer suitable and you already have 25% equity in your current primary residence, then you can get another FHA loan. Another trick is if you co-sign for somebody on an FHA loan and you guys are living together and you split up or something, or you're no longer going to live in that home, never to relocate to that home, you can qualify for another FHA loan. Lastly, if you are a non-occupying co-borrower for somebody, you could have another FHA loan. So this comes into play if you have a kid, say they're 18, they go to school and you want an investment property, you can co-sign for them because they don't have the income. For an FHA loan, put 3.5% down and have your son or daughter rent out the other rooms. Then that's income for you. But those are the only other ways you can do FHA at twice.
Is it twice or at the same time?
At the same time.
At the same time.
Yeah.
You can have 2 FHA loans at the same time.
If they fall within those categories.
If they fall within those categories.
Yes.
Good to know.
Yeah.
So anybody out there who has a kid that is on their way to college or in college, you can use the FHA loan by co-signing for them and just have them rent out one of the rooms.
They can rent out you know, whatever, all the rooms.
And rent out all the rooms. Or
they have to live in one of them, but
Yeah.
they can rent out all the other rooms.
and rent out all the other rooms and make it income for you.
Yeah.
Do I have to claim that income?
I mean, yeah, you should. You should.
But if I do claim that as income, because it's a second home, I cannot use that income to qualify me for another property.
That's correct. Good.
See?
Good.
We learning here, y'all, together. So, thank you so much again, Aimee, for coming out and sharing this amazing information with you guys. I hope you guys were able to take something away from that. I know I did. If you all have any other questions or want to talk to Aimee, you already know how to contact her. Her contact information will be below this video. And I hope that you all have a great rest of the week. And I will see you next week on 12 Weeks of Home Ownership. Bye, guys.